Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to our webinar today. We are excited to have Rick Folkner from Innovia Consulting joining us, and he is going to be covering converting an existing mod in NAV to an extension. And I just want to let you know that before I pass it over to Rick to cover on this topic, we will be recording this session and it will be posted to our on-demand webinar library for you to review and share with anyone. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to type those into the questions box. We will get them answered during our Q&A time at the end of our session. And so now I'm going to pass it over to Rick to kick off our presentation.
Hello everyone, welcome to converting an extension or an existing mod in NAV to an extension. First off, we will be using several tools that Microsoft has provided to convert objects into extensions. All right, the first thing we were going to be using is the FinSQL exe command. They have a switch that you can use to export the objects into the newer syntax of them, so you can convert these into AL files. And then we will be using the text to AL utility they provide, which is a command line utility, and that'll basically convert these objects into AL files, which you can then put into a project and compile as an extension. A couple things I wanted to denote on the FinSQL command is most of it is pretty basic. You have a file path that you are exporting the objects out to, and then you have the database name that you're connecting to, as well as the SQL server name that you're connecting to. And then there is a filter option, which basically filters on what you see in the object designer. You can filter on like types of objects like report, table, and you can do the ID. What I usually like to do is, like if you're doing multiple objects that you want to export, you can change like the version list and tag that with something, so you can then filter on that so you can export all the objects at one time. So let's get started at taking a look at how to do this. I have some objects set up in my database that I want to export out. I tagged them with INVC. So I'll be exporting these objects out and then converting them to an extension. This is for a simple bill of lading mod. First thing you have to do is use the command prompt. One thing to note is you usually have to run it as an administrator, or else you'll end up getting errors and it won't work. The other thing you have to do is you have to browse out to where the actual FinSQL file lays in the directories, which I've already done here. And then to export the objects out, use the FinSQL command, and then you put the switch in command equals export to new syntax. And then the file is going to be the directory and the file name that you want to export the objects out to. Usually what I do is create like a AL directory and a CAL directory. So when you first export these objects out, we're going to go into the CAL directory, and then I have my database name I'm connecting to and the SQL server name that it's on, and the filter I'm using is the version list, and my tag that I put in is INVC. So if I run this command, it will create the export file with all the objects that it filtered on. You can see here just the basic layouts of the text files. And then the next command we're going to use is the text to AL command. And this one is pretty straightforward. What it'll do is it'll look in this directory and any files that are in there, it will convert them and store them in this AL folder that I created. So if we run this, it will run through and create all the AL files that we need. If you notice, like one of the files was a report, and it does export out the RDLC layout. If you have a Word layout associated with it, it would also export that out as well. But now what we can do is in Visual Studio Code, I got a project set up already. Then we can basically just copy these files, dump them into my project. And then you should see them. Actually, one thing that you probably should do is if you're using the same database to create the extension, like after you export them, you probably have to go in and delete out the files or the objects that you have, or else you'll get errors about conflicting numbers. And this might possibly take a second, but if you're usually tables won't let you delete them unless you force them, but and then what we can do is go in here and download the symbols. Which should then remove any of the errors. You might have to go through and look for errors. This is actually just a reference to something we probably don't need, so we can take that out. It's referencing to what I just took out, so we probably take that out. And probably just take that out as well. Because usually what you'll have to do is you'll have to go in and fix stuff after some stuff ain't supported anymore. This just happens to be stuff from a different database that I was using as an example. So the stuff don't exist in this database. I'm just removing it. Usually you have to go in and fix any errors you have. The other thing you'd have to do is if you have any customizations that are on like standard objects like the item table or the customer table or sales order or anything like that, you have to go through and separately convert those to like table extensions or page extensions, whatever you have. Um, and I could show you how to do that real quick. Like if you wanted to make a page extension to like add a sales order button, perhaps to create a BOL from a sales order. What we could do is go up here to create new file and do like page extension and give it like a number. Do like sales order.al. That'll create a new file. I usually use what they call snippets that give you like an outline. So I'll use like the page extension snippet, which will give you an outline on how to create the file. Then you just go in and type your thing like so we want to add a button on the sales order. So what we'll use is the actions thing. To do this, you have to usually know what actions are on there. I could just put see what we got. Processing would probably be a good one to use. Give your action a name. Usually do a caption. Put something like that. And also what I want to do is I want to tap into my code unit I got, which is this code unit I created up here. So like in this code unit, I have a second. down here. Oops. Alrighty, so this should find my still finding my functions. Quick. That's right. This take that out. All right, for this, we have to actually add the trigger. So we do the trigger and we do on action, and then we can define our variable. And do this begin and end tag, and then within this we can access our BOL thing. I have a function called generate BOL for sales order. Call that. Basically, what we're doing is going to be passing at the sales order number. So that's how we would add a action to the sales order page to generate one of our BOLs that we've created. Once we get everything that we want to, we save everything, and then you can hit Control F5 and that'll hopefully publish your changes to the database. And take a second to synchronize. I'm going to open up the database. I see there's actually another extension in there that it's conflicting with. You can go to your extensions and goes one that was conflicting with. Install that. See if I can install this now. All right, my bill of lading extension is now installed. Have to restart. Oops. It's the wrong thing. If we go to a sales order and we open it up, we should have a, here's my generate BOL function that we had. And that basically generates the BOL for it. One thing I did forget to do is on any of these pages, usually what you have to go in and do is add the application area, and you can usually set that to all. Or actually, on the page, you don't need that one, but the other one is the property is, oh, that's the other one you need to set is the usage category, which gets set to like lists or cart page. And on, if you have a report, that one you can set the application area. And so that what these two properties do in the AL thing is it adds it to the menus. So if I go ahead and save this and then republish, this will actually open the web browser version. But what we should be able to do is search for our bill leading list now, and our report also shows up that I set those properties for. But as you can see, a BOL was created and has the information that was pulled off the sales order. So that is basically how we create an existing mod and transform it into the AL files and turn that into an extension. later on, at another time, we might have some more webinars that go more in depth on how to like tie into standard NAV code and how you go about doing all that. But we'll do that at a later time. So for now, I think that is all that I was going to show. So we'll go back to Angie.
Thank you, Rick. We do have a question that came through. Can you tell me what the differences around triggers for Business Central SaaS versus NAV 2018 are?
All right. Triggers in SaaS and the regular Business Central or NAV 2018, most of the triggers are pretty much the same. Like on your tables, you have the on after modify and on insert and all the same triggers. I'm not sure if you're referring to that or if you're referring to events. Events are the way you tap into existing code, and Microsoft is constantly adding new ones. So usually with each CU update, there's like new event triggers added into their code that you can tap into. So those are always, you basically have to go into each object and look and see what you can actually tap into. But we can, that would probably be for a later webinar that we'd dig into that because it's a little more in depth. So I think with that, go back to Angie's or.
Okay, thank you, Rick. If anybody has any additional questions that you would like to speak to Rick about, please feel free to contact him. He's got his information up there on the screen, or feel free to contact your account manager. And I just want to let you know we do have a few more webinars coming soon. Tomorrow, January 29th, we have Bryce Menadu from Innovia Consulting, and he's going to be presenting on a continued series on Hello Extensions. And this one is going to be on creating and structuring your first extension. It's going to be a part 2 of one that he did from December. And then on February 6th, we have ClickLearn that is going to be presenting on from zero to e-learning in 1 hour on Business Central. So check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's innovia.com/events. And Innovia has a podcast going on if you have not heard of it already. It's called the Innovia Conversation, and we want to encourage you to listen to our selection that Steve and Jeff have provided to us over the past year. They do about 2 episodes a month, and you can find out about all the different podcast platforms to listen to on our podcast page, and that's innovia.com/podcast. So check out the podcast selection and subscribe so that you'll be notified when those new episodes air. And we also have our annual customer conference coming up in May this year at the University of Notre Dame. It's going to be May 20th and 21st, and that's here in South Bend, Indiana. You can contact your rep, or you can visit our conference page where we have all of the details for our conference, and that website is innovia.com/conferences. This is a free event to attend. We would love to have you there, so please register so you don't miss out on this great event. All right, everyone, thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again soon on another Innovia webinar. Have a great day, everyone.